Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to review Prismacolor Premier watercolor pencils. Now if you've watched my channel for a while, you know I love Prismacolor pencils. So I decided, well, I should obviously include these in the watercolor battle. So they come in tins like so, including the shape. Yes, I said so twice. But so you can get counts 12, 24, or 36. Unlike Prismacolor Premier regular colored pencils, these are not open stock, but they all come in a smaller tin like this, and it'll just get basically fatter on the side depending on how many you have. So I got the 36 count set. I ended up buying mine from Amazon. However, it's not up there on Amazon right now. It was. So I'll leave links in the description below to both Blick and Amazon, and then, you know, you can buy, if you are interested, either the 12, 24, or 36. Here are the pencils. Now, these don't look much like a regular Prismacolor. In fact, let me grab one for comparison. So here is the normal colored pencil. As you can see, the barrel is kind of a color that represents the color of the pencil lead and somewhat close. And this is totally random, but I just both grabbed two true greens. Did not plan that. So even better, right? Check that out. Yeah, you don't have a number that's exactly the same, but one thing you will notice is these numbers at the end. So see how this says WC watercolor 22910. You'll notice its counterpart 910. Some will not all match up depending on like the color change outs and whatnot, but for the most part the number, the last 3 digits will be the same, and I've noticed the names are the same. Prisma hasn't really changed things up as often as some other brands out there. That said, they did just release those 2 replacement colors and discontinue the others last year. Okay, so they are the exact same size barrel. The lead inside of the watercolor pencil is a smidgy bit bigger than that of the other pencil. Now, these have like the wood finish, and then it'll have Prismacolor watercolor, and they sharpened okay. I used a Dahl 133. I tried sharpening them in a Tagal, and the wood kind of broke away, but I have that problem often with regular Prisma pencils, especially if my Tagal's blade is not very sharp. But they did sharpen all right for that. So, as you can see, I have a few trays in here. What I'm going to do is probably grab, let's do Copenhagen Blue and Crimson Red, and let's do some testing. So, like always, I have my test sheet here. What we're going to do is test them dry and all the way through here, do some things here, and then we'll talk about some other goodies. So I am going to do this real time, so this will be a little longer, but hopefully you don't mind. Okay, so for dry, you lay these down. They are smooth, but also not smooth like a traditional Prismacolor pencil. So that's something I noticed while using them. And they're almost kind of sticky. It's kind of a weird thing. So I'm laying down the ones that we're going to activate. Or at least activate on the paper, I should say. But yeah, I mean, they are smooth, they sharpen well. They're not as creamy as the traditional Prismacolor. And then of course you kind of have a, like I said, this weird stickiness to them. It's got to be something they do in their formula, my guess. Could be wrong. We're gonna blend a blue and a red. What does that make? Usually a purple, but We'll see how that does on paper here. All right, and then I'll just bring this and we'll see if they drag together or not. Okay, so let's start up here. Leaving this one just dry. I would say it's kind of in between, and the reason I say that is just this one pencil happened to be smooth. However, my others, like when I was actually using them and coloring with them, I noticed I had a few that were scratchy, so I'm gonna put in between. So overall it activates well. I can see a little bit of lines leaving. Then we have just a water-based colorless blender. I like to do this test because this is one of my favorite ways as well to use these adult coloring wise. So I always want to take a look and see how well they dissolve. They actually dissolve better with this than the brush. Interesting. All right, we're just going to see if that one lifts up. Not really. But this is a staining color in its defense. However, I would like to see how much I could lift. So if I have an oopsie, is it going to lift? Okay. Now for the palette test, I do have a little bit here on the palette. This kind of helps if you have a paper that shows the lines of your pencil too easily. Oh, that actually comes out quite nice. Okay. And then another way I like to use watercolor pencils is just taking color right from the tip. Sometimes you need it to add, like darken up a little area, you know, add some shading. That's not bad, although I notice it grabs a little bit of some sort of flake coming off the pencil, so that's kind of interesting. All right, let's go ahead and we're testing transparency, but also the drag of color, which actually isn't bad at all. Look how far that can go. It's gonna obviously lighten up, but it's a pretty good drag. All right, let's see about blending, making kind of a murky purple. Let's add a little bit to the center there. I mean, they definitely blend well. I'll give them that. Okay, now we do need to try these on watercolor paper because this is cardstock, and I like to always test them on watercolor paper simply because you get different results. So if you're an adult coloring artist, you're going to notice that your pencils are going to dissolve and even have a different vibrancy on your paper versus if you were to use them on watercolor paper. And some pencils dissolve better on coloring book paper, which is interesting, than they do watercolor paper. I've noticed, but the vibrancy, typically you will notice you have a much more vibrant color on the watercolor paper. I mean, look, for example, how vibrant it is here versus here. And now it's comparative to the activated one. So I guess we have that going for us, right? Okay. Now another thing I like to do is actually color a page with that watercolor pencil because, well, you can't really test a pencil if you don't use the pencil. Swatching is one thing, and then coloring is a whole different mess. For example, here they are all swatched out. When I had swatched these, I was actually pretty impressed. Other than a few here, you see didn't even dissolve. Again, this is a cardstock and not watercolor paper. So indigo and violet blue wouldn't even dissolve. Indigo, I don't know what, that's like one of the worst ones I've ever seen. Everything else dissolved pretty well. You don't see the lines. And the 36 count set, though, I'm not gonna lie, I feel like the color selection is rather meh. Because, okay, we're talking watercolor pencils. Now, for me personally, I use watercolor pencils. I want to dissolve them, like color on my page and dissolve them on the page. I don't want to go mixing on a palette. That said, obviously you'd have to get like a 150 count set to have all the Prismacolor pencil colors. A lot of these are great for mixing, though. They do give you some really good mixing colors, but they kind of are skipped out on the magenta side of things, which makes a better purple They do have Carmine Red, which has a little bit more of a pinky thing going on, but honestly, like, I need a magenta. And they gave us pink, but it doesn't create a good purple either. That said, I mean, you still have purples in this set, but I like to sometimes make different purples or a dark purple. And I can't do that without manipulating or adding a few colors I would rather not add. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, overall, it's kind of an interesting set of colors they curated for their 36 count, considering this is the largest set you can get. So as you can see on the swatches, they're vibrant for the most part. A few are a little washed out, but I mean, this is watercolor, so that's kind of the point, right? Okay, let's talk performance when it comes to actual use in an adult coloring book. These were absolutely horrible. It pained me to say it, but I didn't even finish this page because using these was just driving me bonkers. The color was dissolving okay, except when I started to get into larger areas. Then colors that dissolved when I swatched them were no longer dissolving on the paper. I was going back in for second layers and third layers. And this is a nice, thick, smooth cardstock, similar to what I swatch on. And yet the colors just were not performing like I wanted them to. And overall, it's just very blotchy. And the colors just, yeah, were not working. And then on top of it, when I went to actually use the pencil, you know, in this setting, like I said, coloring and activating it, they were not very fun to use on the paper. In fact, they were, like I said before, they have this weird sticky thing going on. And in this case, they kind of kept, you know, sticking and not gliding, getting some scratchy spots. Just overall, you know, use-wise, was kind of gross. And I am a Prisma lover, but I guess, well, it happens. So the one thing I need to test now is how these reactivate, or if they reactivate. They shouldn't. Most watercolor pencils don't, and neither do these. A teensy came out, but that could have just been from a pool right here, not fully activated. All right, so let's talk about these pencils. You cannot get them open stock. Technically, they are light fast. However, I don't pay attention a lot when it comes to light fast rating, other than, say, if I'm going to drop a dime on Faber-Castell Polychromos Albrecht Dürer or Caran d'Ache Museum Aquarelles. Then I'm going to say, I want to look at your light fast ratings. These are, however, light fast, but similar to the light fast ratings of Prismacolor. That said, you're not going to have amazing light fast ratings here. I wouldn't recommend them for commissioned artwork by any means. If you're an adult coloring artist, it doesn't really matter unless you plan to hang these up, your pictures, in gallery conditions. So if that applies to you, then light fast matters. But no open stock. They, like I said, they did well on the watercolor paper, which is 100% cold press. That's what I like to use. Now, the prices for these. The 12 count set currently is $15.13 on Blick. The 24 count sets are $30.89 on Blick, or $27.49 on Amazon. The 36 count set, which I can't find on Amazon right now, it may pop up later, but on Blick it is $37.17. So on average, depending on where you buy and the sets, these pencils range from $1.03 to $1.46 per pencil. Now, with how awkward these are for me to use, the color payout being kind of meh, I do not feel that these are worth that price tag at all. I actually feel these are quite overpriced. Considering some of the budget sets, legit budget sets that I've been testing as part of this watercolor battle, they are outperforming this brand. And this brand, you're basically paying for the name as well. That said, it's a name we all know and love. Sometimes we're more comfortable with the names we know. They do blend well, but they have those issues. Like I said, here I'm having issues getting them to blend. It just was a nightmare here. But yeah, it's just overall these pencils were quite meh. Would I recommend them? No, not really. And yeah, does that hurt my channel and affiliate sales? Absolutely. But I would rather be honest. I would not recommend these. There are better, cheaper pencils out there that are more fun to use, way better color payout, way better blending, better performance, and you're not overpaying for just a subpar pencil. That's just my opinion. So yeah, these are definitely not something I would recommend. I was not impressed with them. In fact, I got so flustered I abandoned my page, and I'm gonna go probably grab one of my cheap sets and finish it. So let me know if you have the Prismacolor watercolor pencils, your thoughts, if you've had better experiences. This is, of course, subjective. I try to be as neutral as possible while testing, but of course my experience and how I, feel when I use the pencil is going to vary depending on everyone else. We all use different pressure. We all activate with different amounts of water. We use different water brushes, which do make a difference as well. So there's a lot of factors, but based on my experience with these and actual use in an adult coloring book, not a fan. So love to hear your thoughts, and until next time, take care. Bye now.